Hi, this is Chris. Thanks for taking a moment to come and have a look at QikTrak. I'm assuming if you found this quickly, you probably came from our Hasura Discord community, so thank you for that. Otherwise, you've probably found this by browsing through on GitHub, and you have a passion for Hasura GraphQL, as I do. QikTrak is designed to fix a couple of what I consider to be problems or inconveniences, and they exist in the way that Hasura presents table names in queries and also presents relationship names. I'm a big fan of show me, don't tell me, so I'm going to talk less and show you more in a few moments. But I guess, like yourself, I've found lots of problems trying to assess open source packages. I want to decide quickly, is this thing relevant to me, and do I understand what it does, and is that useful to me? So basically, if we jump across into VS Code, let's assume we've just pulled the code from the repo there. The thing that we're going to need is a Postgres instance, an Hasura instance, and then of course some kind of database and data to work with. All of those things are solved very quickly just by running this Docker Compose process. So what it does first of all is build the Postgres database, and when it builds that Postgres database, it pulls in a couple of SQL scripts, and they're in this initdb folder. So please do feel free to take any parts of this process that are useful to you. They might be useful to you if you are rapidly prototyping something, or you constantly destroy and rebuild databases because you want to start testing something from a known position. There's quite a bit, I think, that people that are new to some of this stuff can gain from this project, just as a little case study. Anyway, let's move on. So now our Docker build process completed, there's a couple of things that we can trust. We've just built a Postgres database. It's got some tables in it, the schema's all populated, and we've got test data that's been loaded into those tables. So let's see what Hasura makes of all this. So we've got Hasura running on port 7001 in my case, and as per the Docker build process, as it's a new container build, we've got several standard messages just to dismiss. Well, let's dive in and look for our data. So the first thing we see is the membership schema was created in the database by our SQL scripts. They created some tables which Hasura is now saying are untracked. Super simple. Let's just say track them. Tracking just means that GraphQL queries can be executed against them. Now we've tracked the tables, we've discovered the relationships between the tables. And the one that we're going to refer back to several times in this discussion is actually right here. It's a really good example of why QikTrak came into existence. I play a lot of guitar, so I confuse QikTrak and QuickTrack quite often. Anyway, so we've got this groups table. The groups are what members exist within. Members belong to groups, but the groups have a leader, and we can see that expressed. This is from a foreign key in the Postgres database. So the group's leader ID points at a specific member. And here we can see the relationship between groups and members. That's really where this story is going to start, and you'll start to see the problem, if you like, or my strong opinion on these things take shape quite quickly now. Let's start with a very simple query. First of all, we want our members, and they have a first name and a last name, and let's look at that data. So we've got 6 members: Jack, Jill, Barry, Sheila, Angela and Ben. So far so good, but here's the pain point for me. That's not as concise as it could be for a table name. Let's just call it a table name. Membership underscore members. It could just have been members. So it would be more concise if we could achieve that. QikTrak is going to help us do just that. The next thing we've got is this concept of groups. Groups have a name. They have this mystical leader ID, which we'll come back to. And then they have members. Again, who have a first name and last name. And when we run this query now, we can see in group 1 we've got 3 members, group 2 we've got 3 members. And we know what the member ID is of the leader, but we want to get this object, like what's the name of the leader. Okay, so let's just drop that out there so we don't confuse ourselves. What transpires is, as we saw on that data screen a moment ago, to find the leader, we have this relationship between the groups table and the members table. So that leader is actually expressed here as a member. You might think, not a big deal, and that's absolutely fine. It might not be. But let's just have a look at the data. So back to group 1 with its 3 members, we have this other kind of mystical member dangling off the bottom, which we just happen to know is our leader. So conceptually there's this kind of, confusion in our brain. I thought I have a leader, but now it looks like I've got 4 members. Okay, so don't panic. Everybody's already shouting at the screen, going, just go to the groups table, to relationships, and find the relationship that's causing us this immense pain. So the group's leader ID points at a specific member. The relationship, as far as Hasura is concerned, is called member. We'd prefer it to be called leader. It's really as simple as that, and you'd go, wow. Why are we even watching this video and talking about building an entire open source project to solve that problem? Let's take the next step. First of all, finish this story off for the moment. So we've got this membership groups thing that's still persisting. It would be nicer if it was called groups, but now we've got group 1 with its 3 members and a leader called Jack Valley. That's kind of awesome. So let's pause there just for a moment and recap. So Hasura out of the box has some kind of opinion on how things should be named. We can at least get access to the data, and then we can use a manual process to reconfigure how Hasura named things, so we can express our preference. So now this leader is called leader, not member. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve, and that's how you can build this Docker set of containers, practice, doing the GraphQL queries, and discovering, what are these problems and what do they mean to you. So that's kind of part 1. Let's go across to do part 2 now. Okay, so now we've got a clean environment, i.e. we don't have that Postgres database and Hasura instance running any longer. So let's rebuild them. So we're doing this because, again, our journey wants to start from a clean, if you like, known and predictable state. So in this case, we've now got the QikTrak database, which is our example members and groups with all the data loaded, and the QikTrak GraphQL container. That's a mouthful. So let's skip across, refresh the Hasura container, and over on the data tab, so we get rid of these default messages, that shows us we've got the membership schema and none of our tables are tracked. Remember last time we just clicked this track all button, but that gave us membership underscore groups and so on as the name, and we don't want that. That's why we're here. I'll just run this twice. Sometimes the metadata in the background does get twisted, but second run works like a charm. So let's see, what did QikTrak actually do? Well, the first step it took was to say, hey, I know what you want me to do. You need me to connect to a database and to a particular schema, and you want me to connect to a particular instance of Hasura GraphQL. And then we all share an opinion about the way that keys in the database are named. So member underscore ID is the primary key of the members table. Group ID is the primary key of groups table. But when we think about the group having a leader, well, then there's going to be a column in the groups table called leader underscore ID. And what's really cool about that, if we just quickly skip past the tables, which now have these shorter, concise names instead of membership underscore, and we go straight to this object relationship at the bottom, I can see we now have this lovely thing called leader, which is in groups referencing the members using the leader ID column. In other words, in Postgres database terms, we have a foreign key between groups and members, which is the leader ID column on the groups table pointing at the specific member who is the leader of a group. So what does Hasura make of it now that we've kind of bullied its tracking into a more desirable state, shall we say? So let's do a quick reload. So now we've got our membership schema and our tables, all with nice names, and all of our tables and all of our relationships were all automatically tracked by running QikTrak. There were no manual steps. So if you have to do this process many times a day, or you're rapidly iterating, as we say when we're building apps, you're going to be able to, blow everything away, rebuild it, and start from a nice clean position, try out new ideas, new database designs and so on, super quick, and then have Hasura just fall straight into line with nice intuitive table names and relationship names. We need to prove that those relationship names are nice and concise though, don't we? Here we go. Because we knew that the groups has a leader underscore ID pointing at members, and we know that our opinion is that we should use underscore ID as a key name, if we just drop that underscore ID off the end of this column name, we've got the perfect name for the relationship. So that's how QikTrak works under the hood. It's looking at the database, tell me about your foreign keys, let me look at the names of those keys and where they've got this underscore ID on them. If I drop that off, that'll give me a great object relationship name. For array relationships where a group has many members, and let's say something like a role has many members that reference that role, we simply combine the first table, in this case role, with the second table, members. So it actually would read backwards in a sense. Members references the member role, and member status, it works exactly the same way. So anyway, let's jump across now to our GraphQL query and see down the left how lovely it looks now. Groups is just called groups, not membership underscore groups, etc. So what about our favorite relationship? Let's go for groups, which have a name, members, which have a first name and a last name. And then we have a leader who also has a first name and a last name. So now when we run our query, here are all of our groups. Group 1 with Jack, Jill and Barry, with a leader of Jack, and group 2 with Sheila, Angela and Ben, and a leader of Sheila. If you enjoyed this presentation, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe or hit like. I honestly don't care whether you do or not. I only care whether you really got some value from this, and if you're interested to join the discussion. If you are, please follow through on the Hasura website to get to the Hasura Discord community, and it is loaded with fantastic people. The Hasura GraphQL team are there as well. It is an amazing community. I've worked with them for several years now, developing little tools like QikTrak, and there's more to come. But please, yeah, do join us, join the community there on Discord, and if you've got any thoughts, ideas on QikTrak, I would love to hear them. Take care for now, and hopefully we'll talk in the near future.